How do we know that we can trust Jesus? Well, that's the question that is on the minds of some of the people in our lesson today, and you would be surprised to see who is asking that question. Because it isn't somebody who is super skeptical. It isn't someone who is new to the faith or weak in the faith. It's someone who's been a believer his whole life. Even from the time he was in his mother's womb, he knew that Jesus was the Messiah. This question comes from John the Baptist. In our lesson today, in Matthew chapter 11, we read this. When John, who was in prison, heard about the deeds of the Messiah, he sent his disciples to ask him, "Are you the one who is to come, or should we expect someone else?" That's the question. Are you the Christ? Are you really the one who was to come, or should we expect someone else? As we think about this question, we have a couple of difficulties with understanding these passages, and one of those difficulties is who is really asking this question? Is it John who has doubts, or is it the disciples that have doubts, and he's doing this for their benefit? Go and ask Jesus yourself. Because it really could be either, right? Either one of them could be having doubt at this point. Could be John. And you might say, well, wait a second. John has been preaching the gospel for years. He's been talking about Jesus being the Christ for years at this point. Well, so have I. And I still have doubts sometimes. You say, well, John has been a believer his entire life, since the time he was a baby. I've been a believer ever since those baptismal waters washed over my bald little baby head. And yet sometimes I have my doubts. And so it's entirely possible that it is John the Baptist, because as far as humans go, no one is exempt to feeling these kinds of doubts or having these questions. On the other hand, it might just be the disciples who have their doubts, and John knows where to send them. He sends them to Jesus so that they could hear straight from him. One of the other questions that we have, or difficulties we have, is why is there doubt? Why is John asking for proof here? Is it that he doesn't, want to get burned because he's in prison and he's feeling the persecution, which is fine. Christians should expect as much in this world, but he wants to know for sure that Jesus is who he says he is. Because if he does prove to be the Messiah, then all the suffering is worth it. But if Jesus is a fake or a phony, it'd be kind of good for John the Baptist to know it now, sooner rather than later. Why is there doubt? Is there doubt in the minds of the disciples? Because there are so many scams out there that he wanted to be sure that Jesus was the real deal. But the important thing here isn't who had the doubts or why they had doubts. The important thing is, what did they do with their doubt? They went to Jesus.